are back for another episode of Out of Band. My name is Anne Leslie.
My name is Jennifer Wennekers.
And my name is Faith Opiyo.
And we are very happy to be joined today by David Gadd. So the topic today is, so you want to be a CISO. And David is going to talk about the recruiter view on this. We've had a very interesting series of practitioners join us over the past few weeks talking about day in the life, but what we haven't really gone into is sort of the executive level of security, and that's what we're going to get into today. So David, thank you very much for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you kind of fit into this joyous ecosystem that is cyber?
Absolutely. So my name is David Gadd. I'm a director of a company called Proxene, based in London, and also we have a North American office based in Calgary in Canada. So I've been recruiting or involved in the cyberspace arena for probably 15 years plus. Really dealing with people right across the skill level, but now it's predominantly with the executive level. So I'm dealing with head of InfoSec, director of cybersecurity and CISOs, and having a very much engaged network with people who are looking for work, who are also in employment, who are looking to move, and also contacts who are looking for staff. Very
good. So one of the reasons that we were looking to talk to somebody like you is because we're very keen to have a very, hate the word, but I can't think of a better one, holistic view of the industry. And it's true that at our level, right? So we're not CISO level, right? So we kind of look up. CISOs are the people who give us the budget to do the things that we do. But curious to hear about what the world looks like from up there. In terms of the companies that are hiring, the people who want to be in those jobs, and that sempiternal thing of the talent shortage, right? Because again, we've been talking about it from the level that we're most familiar with, but again, is there one? What's your take on any or all of that?
Well, the debate is if there is a cybersecurity skill shortage, and certainly in some areas, I totally agree that there are. Talking at the executive level, there is less of a skill shortage. There is more of a shortage of the skills needed. So what we're finding is a lot of CISOs, head of InfoSec and director of cybersecurity, they're in a way struggling to find the right positions because they're applying for work or applying for opportunities. A lot of the opportunities are online, which puts a lot of people off. So just a recent comment recently from someone, head of CISO for a big organization. He said, unless there's a contact on there to speak with and or a salary, he will not apply for a job online because salary-wise, salaries all over the place. You see some jobs being advertised for CISOs from sort of £45,000 up to 250. So there's a real confusion in the market of what value a CISO brings. Does a company actually need a CISO? If they do, are they looking for more of a technical person who can go from A to Z? Or are they looking for someone to come on board who will report to the board? So yes, as I say, in some areas there is a skill shortage, but I think there's an awful lot of confusion from companies who are hiring of what they actually need. And that's what's causing the lag.
Is that actually something that you also advise your clients on when, for example, looking for these profiles?
Yeah, absolutely. So an example recently, a company had a job spec and they labeled it a cyber manager. But in fact, what they were looking for was a highly technical person, not a management person. So we advised them to really look at someone who is more technical. And then on the flip side, we were speaking to a company who realistically wanted someone who could cover from A to Z. But the most important aspect was the more management area. So their salary started off at £60,000, but actually they paid someone 110 in the end because the person they were looking for was totally different to what they were looking for originally.
And I guess then that's, sorry, Faith, go ahead.
I was just thinking of a salary of 45,000 for a CISO.
I know. I was sent a link the other day, and basically the comment from the CISO who sent it to me was, "This market is broken." Companies have no idea what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And I can't argue with that.
I think they were looking for an analyst.
Oh. No, absolutely. Yeah. But also I think there is a certain panic in the market where, we are seeing every day a case or an example of ransomware and data breaches. And I think companies are panicking, almost thinking we need to bring someone on board, if they haven't got someone on board at the moment. And what's the best job title we can put? A CISO, without actually understanding what they need. So going back to the original question, is there a skill shortage? I think there is a lack of knowledge of the skills needed by the hiring person. And that's not a criticism, because that, recruitment, a lot of recruitment agencies don't understand that the role that's needed. Talent acquisition teams, they don't understand. And so they shouldn't. I mean, a role of a CISO is far, far, far broader than a job spec explains.
Yeah.
And I think another reason as to why we have this is because the people who write the job description are not the ones who are actually hiring, right? It's not like the hiring manager who's writing the job description. It's from some recruiter who doesn't maybe even know what the job entails. So
I agree, and again, I'll reiterate saying it's not their fault. It is just the system. But and also companies who advertise for CISOs, head of InfoSec, and director of cybersecurity. If a hacker's looking for a weakness in a company, that's one way they can establish. So, if the CISO is resigned and they're on gardening leave, and or if it's a brand new opportunity, that kind of indicates that the front door isn't closed quite as tightly as it should be, and it's slightly open. So for these companies to be advertising, saying, hey, we've got a front door, but it's not locked, walk in, I just find it's completely madness.
I mean, the confusion perhaps around like how to fill in a CISO role is also because of the fact that CISO is, I mean, relatively speaking, a rather new function also within certain organizations.
Yes. Yeah, and also the clarity of what you want from a CISO, and also will that CISO report directly into the board, which there is, and this argument's been going around for 10 years plus. If you've got someone who's in charge of the keys to the house, how could they not report to the board? So basically, and again, depends on what the size of the company is, etc., but until there's clarity of what a CISO does, and that will change as time goes by, then you're right, writing a job spec is just one element of their responsibilities.
And David, from your experience, where do the CISOs normally fit? Do you see most of them reporting to the board, or do you see them reporting to the CFO or something?
That's a really good question. So I think, and I'm just questioning here, I think I saw a report that said only 10% of CISOs report to the board. And what I saw during the last 18 months or so was that companies were cutting back on security teams. So they were getting rid of CISOs and putting the security team reporting into the CIO and or head of finance.
Wow. Okay.
So to answer your question, 10% report to the board. The others report to the CIO, and there's a struggle against where does the budget go? Does it go to IT per se, or does it go to security? So there is a mixture, and again, depends on what size of the company is and such like. But as I said earlier, if you've got people who have got the keys to the door, surely as board members, you want to know what's going on and have that person sitting there, because if there is a breach or ransomware, the person who's going to be have the finger pointed to them will be the CISO.
Yeah.
And like there are industries, right? So financial services, for example, where regulation is requiring that there be, I don't think they've named it as such as a function, but that there has to be a level of expertise on the board. And it's becoming more prescriptive, right? So that kind of recognition that you need to have that. I'm just curious about, so you mentioned 3 titles, right? So we came at it saying CISO, Chief Information Security Officer. You mentioned Director of Cybersecurity or Head of InfoSec. Are they interchangeable, or is there an impact, the fact that a company would be looking for one or the other?
Again, a lot of it does just depend on the size of the company. So if I step back slightly and say that when I'm speaking to head of InfoSecs, their next career move normally is to a position of a CISO. So not always, but a head of InfoSec may be working for a slightly smaller company where they don't have a CISO. Not always. Though some companies do have an InfoSec who reports to a CISO, et cetera, but generally a head of InfoSec would move up to a CISO role. And I'm thinking of major corporates who've got, director of security. So again, there's confusion of
who does what and what is their impact.
Absolutely, yeah, and different industries, as you said the financial sector, obviously they're more likely to have CISOs than other industries may or may not have. So it's career progression head of InfoSec into a CISO, but again depends if that CISO is a board level role or reporting to someone else.
The one that confuses me is the CSO and CISO. Like CSO and CISO, is that not the same?
Again.
Semantics.
And you get,
it just dropped the I.
Yeah.
Well, it could be, I don't know, is it physical security, right? Would it maybe include physical security if it was chief security officer, so not just information security potentially?
But
no, it does.
Yeah.
So
it does include physical also.
You've got business security officers, which again, depending on what company that is a CISO. So just in our conversation here amongst 4 people, there's confusion. So if you open the door and look out to the industry, no wonder there are situations where people are saying there's a shortage because there's no clarity.
I mean,
so Jennifer, go ahead, please.
I wanted to go to the next topic. So if you want to ask a question about this, then please do it first.
No, I was going to the next one, so you go first.
Okay. Yeah, so David, you actually mentioned something really interesting, namely career progression and development and such. And in most cases, people see CISO actually a little bit as some sort of an end station, some sort of a goal to work towards. What do you normally see, for example, in the candidates that you help out? What kind of career paths did they have? What kind of experience do they have?
Majority of them have come through from either an IT background and then crossed over to security from a technical perspective, and or they've started from day one in security and moved up. But the intriguing aspect now is that the CISO position is becoming far more business orientated. So not all current CISOs could become CISOs of the future, if that makes sense.
That's an interesting comment.
So the CISOs who have stepped away from the technology aspect and have become more business focused, there's obviously roles for them. But there are obviously roles for CISOs who are, I'm not going to say hands-on, but obviously fully well in the technical aspect. But because, or as the CISO role becomes more apparent on boards, they have to become more business savvy.
Yeah.
So, but a really good question, as you say, is what background, and it's a mixture. And again, some people have come from the military background and moved across. So there's a whole mixture. And I think the beauty aspect or the beautiful aspect of the industry is it is becoming more diverse. An awful lot more ladies and women are moving back or moving into the industry, which is fantastic. The 2020 report said that there was only 18% of females in the industry, and the average data percentage, as in other parts of data, is about 28%. So we've still got a long way to move, but there are some real drivers to get more females into the market, which I think is fantastic.
I have a question. Do you? I've just thought of this one. Have you ever been asked, to bring a lady, specifically, we want a lady for this particular role?
That's really
unkind. Do that, right? Like, is it legal? Like,
oh, wow.
You can't say you want a man, right? I don't know if you can say you actually want a woman.
You've really
Spill
put me
the
in the corner
beans.
here, haven't you?
Okay, maybe we can reframe it, right?
Okay.
How are you coming across more companies who are encouraging you to widen the pool?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Politically
The answer
correct.
to that is yes. But to say yes, both questions, doesn't matter how they're put, but yes, we have. And fortunately, through the number of years of building my network, I have some fantastic ladies, females, who can do a marvelous job. So that's not an issue for us. And we have to work to our clients' specific requirements. So so it's exciting times that there's more females coming to the market, and we're absolutely embracing it, and it's fantastic. And it's not just diversity from the female perspective; it's people from different education backgrounds as well, which is awesome. And neurodiversity as well. People come through who are neurodiverse and fantastic.
It all comes down to transferable skills, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So again, as long as there's clarity on what is needed, then absolutely, and there can be a career path all that way.
Yeah.
So okay, so what makes a good CISO? What are you looking for when you're trying to hire a CISO?
So what makes a really good CISO is someone ideally who's come through the ranks from an IT or technical security aspect. But it's someone really who is forward-thinking, someone who has got the business acumen, so can present to the board. A lot of the times I find and I feel that the CISOs really have to fight for their budgets. And they have to have really good presentation skills, sales negotiation skills, and awareness from a business perspective on how to sell that to the board. So if they went in on a technical aspect, they would lose the board. I'm being generalistic. But if they went with a bigger picture, so really, as I mentioned earlier, the role is, I'm saying, changing. I think it's becoming more established, become more business acumen or more business aware. So the perfect CISO is someone who has come from the background I mentioned, who has got fantastic abilities to sell what they're looking to gain, and who's got multi-industry experience as well.
So that's like the ideal, right?
Yes.
And I'm guessing, well, actually, it's a question. I was about to make the assumption that it's rare. Is it rare?
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
I'm speaking to many CISOs who are currently in employment, who are looking to move. So obviously that's different from someone who's not working and looking for a new job. And there are fantastic people out there, both in the UK and globally. So no, it's not rare. It's obviously finding them the right position, whether that's the right environment, whether it's a position that's reporting to the board, if that's what they're looking for, and also the scope. So we have different types of candidates who are looking for different types of roles. So they may be looking for a completely greenfield site. So going in there and setting up a whole brand new security aspect. There's some people who like to go in where the whole situation is a complete mess for whatever reason. And they enjoy syndrome. Yeah, exactly. And they enjoy the world. And they enjoy getting that mess to the maintenance stage and then moving on. And then we have other people who are quite happy to go into the maintenance stage and just keep the wheels turning.
Yeah.
So really, it's an elongated answer, but it all depends on, and that's why recruitment is still very much of a human industry. Yes, there are AI and automated systems, but unless you actually get to know the people and what is required, companies are missing out on really good people.
So with regards to like a CISO interview, I cannot imagine it. So with regards to a CISO interview, how many do they have? What does it look like as like a typical one?
So generally, I would say it's between sort of 4 to 5 interview processes, and that will cover obviously the initial fit, through to, you know, a 100-day plan. So if you were to get the job, what the 100-day plan looked like. So again, it depends on the companies, but I would say between 4 to 5, and that shows the value of that person. So yeah, typically 4 to 5 interviews, and that's presentation, technical, and vision for the future.
Yeah. I mean, I think that that's actually one of the most important aspects of being able to fulfill a CISO position, that you have a vision for cybersecurity, that you know what you want to incorporate within an organization, right?
Yeah, yeah. And also examples of, you know, breaches that have happened before when they've been involved, in charge, or what have you, because you learn from those experiences.
When you're talking to CISOs, right, you mentioned that there are CISOs on the move, right? Actually, so Jennifer shared an article earlier today about the Great Resignation. Okay, so it's not specific to security. It's just about a whole bunch of factors that are linked to current context and stuff that's going on. You know, you only live once, the whole YOLO thing. People unwilling to go back to the office. A bunch of factors. But CISOs, right? If CISOs are on the move, why are CISOs on the move?
So
ransomware.
Yeah, but like, it's just a case of, you know, it's like a merry-go-round, right? Because
absolutely, yeah. And unfortunately, the ransomware won't go away. But so the answer to that is that there's been an awful lot of CISOs, or there are an awful lot of CISOs, and again, head of InfoSec and director of cybersecurity, who have stuck or stayed where they are for the last 18 months. Yeah. So they were looking to move just before the pandemic happened, and for many reasons they haven't moved, whether it's loyalty to the company and they didn't want to leave them in the lurch. They felt or insecure about moving to somewhere else in case, you know, as we all know, over the last 18 months, it has been a completely unknown situation. But the reasons they're looking to move from where they are is because a lot of them don't feel appreciated. So if we look at the stress levels, which maybe something we'll cover later on, but stress levels over the last 18 months have been huge, and they feel as though they have not been appreciated. Well, they're in now. So they're looking to move to companies who appreciate cybersecurity. So again, as I mentioned before, if they're not reporting to the board, they're looking to move to a CISO role which reports to the board. Looking to build up a fresh team. So looking to re-energize is probably a good way of summarizing it. But it is the fact of being appreciated for what they do. Yeah. And
so they're human, basically. Like,
absolutely. And of course
we all are.
Precisely. And as we know, the only times you hear about CISOs really is when there's been a breach. There's so much work going on in the background that you never hear of, but of course the only time you do hear is when something's happened. And because they're not being covered externally, internally sometimes they just don't feel appreciated, and it's not until they leave people go, wow, she or he did a fantastic job.
I mean, that is something that we actually also slightly touched upon in the pre-work or in the pre-conversation. Stress levels are extremely high. I mean, there is this famous meme that shows the CIO sleeps like this, the CEO sleeps like that, and the CISO just never sleeps. No.
Yeah, and again, over the last 18 months, obviously, we've seen a huge shift and change of the way we work, and we've seen obviously the increase in cyber attacks. But I think that the most important aspect from the people I'm speaking with is their real concern for their teams. So I'll quote one gentleman who said, "What I'm concerned about is my team cannot establish where their home is." So they're working from home, and when they're working in the office, they can close the laptop down or shut their desktops down, walk away, commute, or do what have you. My team, this is him talking, they can't turn off now because they're sitting in their front room, kitchen table, what have you, and it's 24/7. And he said the stress levels for them is worse than it is for me, but of course that reflects back on me. So I think the stress has come from, yes, an increase in cyber attacks, and also internal threats. It's easier, I'm using quotation words, quotes saying easier, but for internal threats, it's easier if under one roof rather than spread everywhere out. But also it's concern for their team members.
Yeah.
We
Which I
had
think is really
a few kind of cybersecurity practitioners join us, and this theme of not feeling appreciated, it runs deep and it runs across all levels. And actually, what's interesting is that we had a CISO on. We haven't actually published that episode yet, but I think people who are kind of lower down the hierarchy maybe think things are better at the top, but it just seems that security is ill appreciated, maligned, misunderstood until something goes wrong, and all of a sudden it's everybody's priority. But then, like you say, the blame gets pinned on somebody, and you're kind of thinking, why would anybody want that job?
Absolutely. And there's almost an oxymoron concept where and I saw a post saying, our CISO is a hero because he or she did so-and-so. They don't class themselves as heroes either. So it's not a case where they want to be put onto a pedestal and people bow down to them and everything else. So in my mind, the CISOs and heads ofs are very humble people, but they just want that recognition that actually they are closing that front door, they are locking it, they're making it airtight to maintain the reputation of the company. And I think the reputation of a company can be spoilt so quickly. And as we're seeing that from, cyber attacks and ransomware, and unfortunately, I think a lot of boards just do not see the value of cybersecurity against the reputation of their company.
Until it's too late.
Until it's too late, until that door's wide open, and then how long does it take to close it and do anything else?
And I think that's actually something that is also inherently bad about our industry at the moment, because as soon as something happens and it gets widely published, everyone starts the blame game. It's not just internal pressure, it's also the major external pressure that a person can all of a sudden get. And I was reading a report the other day about one of the biggest issues about trying to find senior executives, cybersecurity senior executives, was the salary. Companies aren't prepared to pay what the market rate is. Well, as I said before, if they are doing the job they're supposed to be doing, then how much would you compare their salary against the reputation of the company?
So it just sounds right. So we work in the industry, and we are good days and bad days, but mostly, we believe in security and the value in it.
We still plow through.
There you go.
But what is it, right? So I had a conversation with somebody who used to work in law enforcement, and he retired from law enforcement, and he's now kind of using his transferable skills in cyber to teach people negotiation and the human element and these kind of things. And he had a really interesting comment that got me thinking, which is, we talk in cyber about framing it in terms of business risk, right? And that kind of ties into what you said about the board level, the exec level, having that ability to put it in a business context, influence, etc. The thing about business risk is that it's very logical, right? You can kind of get your head around it, and you kind of go business risk, reputation, financial damage, that kind of thing. And it looks great in a deck. Thing is, though, it doesn't seem to drive behavioral change. It's logical, but it's not emotional. And the thing about us humans is that we're not driven, we're very infrequently driven by logic, even though we love to think that we're very logical people. We're not. So the question actually is how do we get people to care more? Like, if you're a CISO and you're not out to save the world, but you do want to do a good job, you want to have an interesting day, manageable levels of stress, a team that you can get some fulfillment out of helping and allow them to thrive. What could we be doing differently to allow CISOs to have impact and security professionals to flourish? Because there are people who really want to thrive in this industry, and yet there seems to be so much frustration.
I think it actually goes back to cyber awareness training. I just, and again, I talked about companies getting rid of their CISO and diverting their security staff to report to the CIOs. In the same breath, I've almost heard people saying, because money is tight because of the pandemic, we're going to get rid of cyber security awareness courses. You know, we don't need them. What evidence is that it works? And you just think, oh my goodness.
We just need to unleash ransomware that way, right?
Yeah.
Then they'll find out.
Yeah. So, you know, if you looked at a triangle of an organization, you know, cyber security awareness should be everywhere. Top, bottom, across the whole thing, and that would make security professionals' life, I say, a lot easier. It would make it easier because
more
people
pleasant.
will be there. And you know, in my mind, as soon as a new person starts at a company, one of the first things they must have is cyber awareness courses.
Duh. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. And unfortunately, it just doesn't happen that way. And I've spoken to plenty of cybersecurity awareness trainers, coaches who are looking for work because they've said, you know, budgets have been pulled. The companies just do not see the value of that. You just think, really, come on. So that's, in my mind, what would make people's lives easier.
I think it might actually go just one step further than only awareness training. I think it needs to be ingrained into the whole organizational culture.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if you just have those training sessions once a year, you just do click, 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 next, 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 and then it's done, and you don't need to think about that. Yeah. If you, however, ingrain it within your company culture, then basically you ensure that everyone becomes, and I know this sounds really idealistic, but a security ambassador, basically.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. And the key to that is not only for them to learn about the corporate culture, as in cyber awareness, but their personal aspect as well.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't think people are aware of it until something happens on their behalf. And then they suddenly realise, crikey, identity theft, etc., and then it can roll into the corporate aspect.
Yeah.
So what level of the corporate kind of, you say like the company doesn't see the value, is there typically a function that would be kind of militant, right? I'm maybe finance, is it board level? Who typically, and is there a typically, would kind of go, yeah, cyber is a waste of time. We can cut that budget. So I should.
Where would I start? Really, I mean,
you ask difficult questions.
Oh, fantastic! No, it's being recorded and it's difficult to answer. Again, depends on the size of the companies, but if you sat down and spoke to a board collectively and said, when was the last time you did cyber awareness training? They probably look like rabbits in headlights. They probably wouldn't, because a lot of breaches actually come from the C-level.
Yeah, they've been fished.
There you go. So you've answered it, really.
Yeah.
C-level.
All right.
So, because it's not measurable, and as we know in business, if you can't measure it, cut it out. Yeah. And the only time you can measure it is
when it hits.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's like drinking from a fire hose. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And it's too late.
But we're not doing a really good job here, girls, about getting people to want to be in this industry. But the thing is,
I think
that's a good thing.
It's a good thing because it shows the realistic aspects about it. Yeah. I mean, some people that I've encountered in my 6-year journey through cybersecurity up until now are people basically that like the title and like sometimes the salary that comes with it, but don't inherently understand the responsibilities that come with it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
I'd like to be a CISO, but I'm very scared now from this whole conversation. So let's share some positive vibes about it. Is there any positive?
Oh, absolutely.
Thing?
I mean, you're in the role, apart from the CEO, you're in a role where your involvement is right across the business.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're that sort of person who is enthralled in it and enjoys that aspect, then it's fantastic. And believe me, the people I speak to all day, every day are awesome people. And they've got energy, so they're humble, they just want to do a good job, get paid for the job they're doing, and if they can, get some sleep.
Very important.
So I have a question. Okay, so let's say I make it to a CEO, I have to dream, right? What happens if, let's say, we've been doing a good job, but shit sometimes hits the roof. What happens to me if I get a breach?
As in career-wise?
Is that like career suicide?
You know what, it's a really good question. I was chatting to someone who was actually in charge of a company's security when they had a massive breach. And they said they couldn't believe how the industry came together to support them, because they know it's not just one person, it's a whole setup, and there's an awful lot of stories behind what happened for it to happen. So again, it all depends.
Okay.
You know, there's plenty of companies I could mention off the top of my head, which I won't do. You know, household names where there's been breaches, and the CISOs have moved. They haven't left the company because of that breach, but they have moved at some point, and I haven't seen a reflection on their career as in a downward situation, because there is so much more to a breach than just from what you hear in the papers.
And
So I think the key to that was that people truly come together within the industry to support people.
okay,
But it comes, sorry, Faith.
but do you ever have a situation whereby the CISO is sacked because of it?
Not, I haven't seen it,
Okay.
but I'm pretty certain I read a report fairly recently about one of the CISOs who was in charge in America of
Yes, that one, it got pinned right on that poor individual.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think they had their briefcase door closed and out the door.
At the door.
Yeah. So it does happen. Yeah, it does happen, and I'm sure. Again, it goes back to who's hiring. So if it's a non-CISO person who's hiring a CISO, you know, they may look and say, crikey, you know, I heard a story about that company having a breach. Now that person's applying for the job. No thanks. Whereas the CISO who's leaving, if they were hiring, they say, you know what, I know XYZ, they're a decent person, their budget was cut or whatever it may be.
Yeah,
that's what caused it.
I mean, that's basically what it also comes down to, right? Being aware of all the different conditions that are around that specific position, and being able to push forward developments and also to make certain decisions around it.
Yes. Yeah.
But
a really good question, Faith.
Yeah.
Sorry, Anna, go on.
No, I just totally agree with
you.
you.
Really good question. I think at some point, I think CISOs will have to get to be insured themselves.
Ooh,
that's a liability statement.
Wow.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. I mean, we have cybersecurity insurance now for companies, which there is arguments, and again, debate we could have at another point. A debate where a lot of people say within the industry, the hackers know that company's insured, so they
will target it. Yeah,
they target that company, and then 3 months later they target them again. So by having the insurance, you know, you're almost putting a red flag. But I think at some point it will be a case where CISOs will have to be insured themselves, and that will change the game completely, because they'll have to be on the board, because they'll need to know what's going on, and the board will need to know what's going on.
Yeah, because if you're personally accountable for it, then you need to be at least in that specific position to be able to make those decisions and push things forward. Yeah.
So Faith, are you still interested in becoming a CISO?
I'm still a little scared. But okay, so my other question is this, right? What can I, as a person who's, you know, lower in the ranks, do to make sure that my CISO can sleep at night, other than my work, you know, as in what can I, how can I support them? Because sometimes I feel, you know, like, hey, what can I do for them? I can't do anything.
Just make them lots of coffee. And just...
No, I love my CISO.
And again, thanks for asking that question. But I mean, if the CISO has got the team running how he or she would like it, then all you've got to do is do your part. Because as I said before, you know, when there is a breach, it's not just down to the CISO, it's down to other elements as well. But if you're doing what you're doing, your colleagues doing what they're doing, and you know the CISO has got a well-oiled engine going, then I'm never going to say they shouldn't have a breach, but the chances are less. So it's just clarity on their behalf of what you're supposed to be doing it, being enthusiastic about wanting to expand your responsibilities, expand your training and such like. But I wouldn't worry too much about them. They know what's going on, and you know, so they've got coffee coming lots and lots and lots of time. So, but a lovely question, and I think that would be a really nice question for candidates who are going to report to a CISO to ask that.
I actually thought you were going to ask a different question, Faith. I thought you were going to ask, what should I be doing to get to be a CISO?
That's my next question. So what should I be doing, David?
Well, I think clarity on what route you want to take. So whether you want to carry on being on the technical aspect, whether you want to become more business savvy, and look at the education you need to get to that point. And again, education is another topic we could talk about, because every single job spec you see, almost for any level, they ask for a CISP.
Yeah.
And you know, in junior roles, they say 5 years experience in a CISP. And even people who've got CISP say this isn't worth the paper. Generally, it's not worth the paper it's written on. Don't quote me on that, actually. But
you're surrounded by friends here.
Friends on the internet.
Yeah, precisely, yeah. But look at the education and you know, have a roadmap of where you want to go, and the type of organisation. So if you want to be you know, head of InfoSec within a small organisation, which is a CISO, so be it. But if you want to work for a major organisation, then there is a career path to that.
Actually, with regards to, you know, moving into a CISO role, is it better to go to a smaller company and then rise up the ranks and then move back to a bigger company, or how do I do that?
To be honest with you, it depends on the individual. It really depends on the individual. I've spoken to some individuals who just want to fast track, and they just want to go bang, and they don't necessarily have the skills to do that, but they may be able to convince the company that they can do it, and then I'm sure they do a good job. So it all depends on the individual, depends on the company, and again, it goes back to job specs. What does, or job titles rather? What does a head of InfoSec actually mean? What does a director of cybersecurity mean? What does a CISO mean? So I think for individuals, it's knowing at what stage of the ceiling do you want to get to, at what stage, and for how long before you want to move somewhere else.
And I think it might also be important to have support within an organization for you to move into a certain position.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
If there's no support, girl, just run. But
yeah.
you mentioned something good about the education. So okay, obviously there's a CISP, but do we like need to get like an MBA or something? What education you get?
Again, I'm sitting on the fence here really, because it depends on what role you want. But MBAs,
you're being so security. You're being a real security specialist. It depends.
There you go. Absolutely. I know people who've got MBAs and they've really struggled to find work. So a gentleman who comes to mind straight away is working for a major organisation as a head of InfoSec. He's done his MBA, so his next career move is to become a CISO. That's what he's looking for. And you just can't find the super well. So the MBA actually hasn't helped him at all, because he may have the qualifications there, but they say, well, you haven't got the experience.
Yeah.
So I mean, let's say CISP, CISM, there are, you know, some great education and certificates to get out there. It depends on what career path you want to maneuver, and how important certificates are to you and to the company and the person you can report to. You know, a lot of times at the moment I'm speaking to CISOs who say, when I recruit, I'm looking for attitude, enthusiasm, and know-how, and education is secondary or third. But if you haven't got the right attitude, if you haven't got the enthusiasm and the staying power, you're no good to me.
You have that, Faith. You have that.
You guys will love me.
Oh,
I'm gonna be a CISO one day. But let me tell you something. So so someone actually told me that someone asked me a question. Have you looked at the number of CISOs out there? Most of them have had experience as consultants. So basically, we were talking about career move, and I was trying to move out of the consultancy part into going back into threat hunting. And the quote was that that's a terrible move because most of the CISOs have been consultants. Is that the actual fact? Like, no?
So that.
Okay, so I'm good with moving into my my technical track and moving up the ladders.
And I'll tell you what, when you get there, let me be the first person to interview you.
Oh,
because
David.
you've asked me some really good questions, and I'd love
That's
to turn
a date. Okay.
So you stick with what you're doing, and you'll get there. Believe me.
Thank you. Thank you. I got a dream. I got a dream.
Well,
Jennifer
said at the weekend when he flew his aircraft to space, he said, "I dreamed of doing this when I was a boy. Believe in your dreams." And there you go. Believe in your dreams.
The problem is that I also love my sleep.
Yeah, that's a problem.
So I don't think I'll be able to sleep as a CISO, right?
Maybe you could be the first person. There you go.
Times will change, no? Times will change.
Absolutely.
Also looking a little bit at the time, because we're almost at the head of our scheduled slot. David, first of all, really thank you a lot for your insights, because I think that we all learned a lot from you. Do you have any final words of wisdom, things that you want to share with us, or anything like that?
I think to summarize everything we've discussed from a recruitment perspective is just keep it human. Because there are so many fantastic people out there that really deserve a great opportunity because they have the skills, they have the personality, but for some reason they just do not get through the automated system. So recruitment is a human engaging industry, and that's what we should be doing. Full stop.
Amen to that.
I think that's a very good ending quote. Before we really wrap up, Faith, and final words?
I know, I have nothing better to add on that. That's
that's a full stop.
You sure, Faith?
We still have a date.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Then
fantastic.
David,
Thank you. I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
It's really good fun.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
And hopefully we'll do it again sometime in the future. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, I just wanted to say you're more than welcome to join us next time again, because I think that myself, I still have like 10,000 questions that I still would like to ask you, which I wasn't able to ask right now. And I'm sure that Faith also has a couple of still.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it again sometime. So happy to do that. So have a good weekend, everyone, and we'll catch up again.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.